Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending our March meeting of the Astrobiology Science Communication Guild. Today, our speaker is Simon Steele from the NASA Community College Network. It's going to be a really great presentation on his organization SETI and the NCCN Science Activation Group and how you all can get involved in several opportunities. So, Simon, I'm going to let you have the floor.
It's great to join you today. My first confession is I am not an astrobiologist. My expertise is in extragalactic astronomy, so don't ask me anything about biology. But we'll throw that out straight away. Anyway, so I am the deputy director at the Carl Sagan Center for Research at the SETI Institute. We are a research institute located in Mountain View, California. That's about an hour south of San Francisco. And as you can see from the right-hand side of the slide, we are celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, founded in 1984. So very exciting. That's an opportunity to both look back at achievements and also to look forward. Because, of course, the SETI Institute, by nature of its name, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, is a work in progress. We haven't, despite what US Navy photographs imply, discovered any alien civilizations so far. But this is very, very early days. It's a science that's growing by leaps and bounds, and the latest technology and abilities using artificial intelligence are really quite extraordinary, what we're about to be able to do. As I said, I'm an astronomer by trade, but I'm also lead the education and outreach component of the Institute. So I am involved in various communications outreach programs, one of which I am the PI of, and that's the NASA Community College Network. So I'm going to say a little bit about the SETI Institute first. And then dive into our education program and especially NCCN. This is me standing by some of the antennae of our radio telescope facility in Northern California. It's about 5 hours north of San Francisco. It's in an area called Lassen Volcanic National Park. It's a gorgeous national park, but tends to be overshadowed by all of the other national parks in California. But it really is worth popping up to. This is a radio telescope array. There are 42 dishes. For those of you who have read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that is a complete coincidence. So we have 42 dishes. And it is the only telescope facility in the world designed to detect technosignatures, that is, signatures from technologies. There are a lot of other radio telescopes that do SETI research, but they are not specifically designed for that purpose. So a beautiful facility. If you're ever that part of the country, do pop in. They'd love to give you a tour. Okay, let me see if I can advance the slides now. Number 2. Yeah, just a little bit about the SETI Institute. As I say, it was founded 40 years ago. These are 3 of the key players in the founding of the Institute. The names of some will be familiar to you. Jill Tarter, I'll say a little bit more about in a second, and Frank Drake, one of the founders, and Carl Sagan as well, who was instrumental in the early days of the Institute. That's a photograph of our former building. We moved 2 doors down a couple of years ago. But if you enter in SETI Institute into your sat-nav GPS, it will still take you to the old address, just to warn you. Such is technology. Frank Drake and Jill Tarter and Carl Sagan have been really were the drivers in the turning SETI as a science or as an idea into a proper science. And really, the Institute is based on their work and others. Frank Drake and Carl Sagan worked on some other projects that you may be familiar with, which are also to do with communication. Drake and Sagan designed the Pioneer plaque, which is obviously it's a little bit controversial now in terms of its sort of imagery representing humanity. But the concept there of putting a message on a spacecraft, which we call METI or messaging extraterrestrial intelligence, was started by Sagan and Drake. Almost at the end of the decade, 1977, they did the same thing but more sophisticated. They designed what's called the Golden Record, that was put onto the side of the Voyagers 1 and 2. And that is literally a record, and their instructions on how to play that record are on the casing that you see there. Of course, for a long time, humans forgot what records were like. When I grew up, we had records, and then humanity forgot what records were when CD and iTunes started. Now, anyone who's cool buys vinyl again, so you can talk more about records. So that has a lot of information on not only how to play it, but the sights and sounds of Earth. Really a sort of a capsule sent out into space. The figure at the bottom actually appears on both. You see that what looks like a sort of starburst with lines coming out. That is actually indicates the location of Earth from bright pulsars. What's interesting is that pulsars are very recognizable objects throughout the galaxy, and that is a three-dimensional map showing the location of the Earth from those pulsar locations. What's very interesting, of course, is pulsars spin down. They slow down after a period of time. And so encoded in those lines are not only the location of the pulsars, but also their rotation rates. And so an alien civilization that picks up these two plaques, if they run into these spacecraft, can not only tell where they were launched from, but when they were launched, because you've got a timing mechanism there from the pulsars, which is really, really cool. Moving on to the last thing on this page, of course, is one of the major attempts to communicate, or at least a pilot method to communicate with alien intelligences. This is the Arecibo message that was sent out from the Arecibo Observatory in 1974, and it was a binary coded message sent out to a globular cluster, which is probably the last place you would actually look for aliens because of the types of stars. But as you can see, a rather sort of cryptic message of information about humanity. And it may form a sort of good idea, good concept or a model of what an alien would communicate with us should we receive a message. It's a radio transmission. Radio waves are the best way to communicate over long distances because they're not, attenuated by gas and dust. And most advanced civilizations should know about radio communication. That's a very anthropocentric view, but basically the laws of physics, chemistry, and maybe biology are common throughout the universe. So it's a very interesting pattern. To me, it looks like there's a red human figure with a very large blue head, but the red figure, of course, is the human. And above it is the blue, which is a DNA double helix. So there's a lot of information in that. And if you go to Wikipedia, actually has quite a good entry on that, on the Arecibo message. Frank Drake is also famous for what's called the Drake equation. And this was an attempt, a roadmap, if you like, to figure out how many intelligent communicating civilizations there are in the Milky Way at any one time. A show of hands, I can see some people's faces who have heard of the Drake equation and who haven't. Who's heard of the Drake equation? Probably most people, certainly in your line of work. So this was developed in the early 60s, but it really is the roadmap for the research at the Institute. Running through the terms here, they're quite straightforward. The first one, rate of star formation, fraction of stars that have planets, number of Earth-like planets, fraction of those that life evolves, fraction of those that intelligent life evolves, fraction of those that communicating intelligent life evolves, and then the average length of a civilization that remains communicative. That has two answers, an optimistic and a pessimistic. The optimistic, of course, is that civilization will actually move to technologies that we are not able to communicate with, because we are limited in certain ways. So the SETI Institute really covers all of these areas. We have scientists involved in the TESS mission to discover exoplanets. We have scientists who are involved in searching for life, both on Mars, involved in the Mars rovers. Actually, that's Perseverance with those small canisters, which is a Mars sample return. Not only do we have scientists involved in that research, but also involved in planetary protection, which is how do you bring back those samples safely to Earth when you do a Mars sample return mission. So two aspects there that the Institute is involved with. Intelligent life, we have a wonderful scientist called Lawrence Doyle, who is now actually talking to whales, which is quite amazing. He uses information theory to estimate the intelligence and the syntax content of whale communication. And what's very interesting is that this is obviously a non-human method of communication, and you can apply this idea of information theory to an alien signal should you detect it using a radio telescope, where the idea is you can maybe never decipher what the message says from an alien civilization, but you can determine that it is a message by looking at syntax structure using information theory, which is very, very exciting. And there's a couple of wonderful YouTube videos with Lawrence Doyle's work that you can search for on YouTube. And finally, of course, we do SETI. There's a nice picture of Ellie Arroway from the movie Contact, which I'm sure everyone's seen. And of course, Contact was written by Carl Sagan, and the character of Ellie Arroway, played by Jodie Foster, is based on Jill Tarter, one of our founder scientists. And so that's a nice sort of loop through. So that's just really an overview of the SETI Institute. We do, use the Drake equation to drive our research and our outreach. We're pretty much an 80% NASA-funded astrobiology institute. Although our name, we keep the name because it's cool and we got a good logo. Really, only about 20% of our research is technosignatures. The majority of our research is biosignature. And our head of science, Natalie Cabral, who was the former head of the NASA Astrobiology Institute, is of course an astrobiologist who does a lot of work in Earth analog research. And I can say a little bit more about that at the end, if you like. As I said, I am heading the education outreach component of the Institute. Most of our funding does come from NASA, about 80%, a lot of private funding as well. SETI, the search for technosignatures, is not funded by NASA. They only go up as far as microbes, and have decided that funding, and this is a congressional thing, not a philosophical thing, that searching for anything more sophisticated than microbes is not appropriate. We have found a few loopholes in that, which I can talk about, and that may be changing moving forward. But most of our work is NASA funded, including. Sorry. So.
Simon, you're muted.
Sorry. Can they hear me again? I don't know how that happened.
Yes.
I disappeared. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll go back to the beginning. No, we won't. The education outreach, especially the education component of the Institute, is also NASA funded, like most of our work, and it's funded through what's called the NASA Science Activation Collective. This is a science mission directorate program that funds 50 teams, roughly 50 teams across the country, whose role it is to bring NASA science into various public domains. And you can see there some of those teams and their direction. There's Solar System Ambassadors is a program that has that trains teachers and educators to go into classrooms and museums. NASA at My Library is an obvious title, going into libraries to bring NASA science into libraries. Night Sky Network works with amateur astronomers. That's out of Astronomical Society of the Pacific in San Francisco. So the idea there is to use NASA resources, that is NASA scientists, subject matter experts, and resources such as visualization, such as images, data tools, to enhance STEM education, enhance science literacy in various realms around the country. The SETI Institute has two science activation programs. One is called the Airborne Astronomy Ambassadors, that works with high school teachers, professional development. And the other one is the one that I'm PI on, which is the NASA Community College Network. So just to say a little bit about the motivation behind NCCN, and I don't know if any of you are community college graduates who have gone through that program. Do I see a nod there from? No, okay, not shake it. Community colleges, as you well know, are vital education institutions because of the demographic that they serve. And it's certainly true for astronomy and space science because about 300,000 students take astronomy and space. And I use the word astronomy broadly here in terms of space science, in terms of astrobiology. Roughly 300,000 students take an intro astronomy space science course every year. And almost half, you can tell I'm an astronomer rounding off very, very broadly, take them at community colleges, not at Cornell, not at Harvard. A lot of people are taking these introductory courses at community college. There are about 700 programs, 700 colleges across the US teaching astronomy. And what's important here is that they're taught under various topics: astronomy, astrobiology, physics, geology. And by more than 1,300 instructors. And a lot of these instructors are actually part-timers. And in fact, a lot of these instructors do not have a good foundation in the subject they are teaching. They may well be chemists, they may well be physicists or engineers who are coming in to teach astronomy and space science with very little background. So that being the case, there's a very strong argument to support these instructors in their roles and try and give them as much sort of professional development and help as possible. Also looking at the demographic and the fast facts sheet there, which we don't have to run through all of them, but you can see that looking at the student demographics, 26% are Hispanic students. 30% Black African American, 29% are first generation college goers, 15% are single parents, veterans. And so community colleges really do reach an incredibly broad demographic of the community they're serving. And in fact, community college will reflect the community that it sits in, whereas a university will not. And so it really is a very, very important network of institutions to support broad learning for everybody. And so the SETI Institute proposed a program to work with community colleges. That proposal went in 2020, and we were funded for 5 years. And we proposed a set of interactions with community college instructors. We're not working with the students, we're working with the instructors themselves, and by virtue, therefore, reaching the students. And these are the four main areas that we are engaged in. One is to provide professional development webinars. That is, we get scientists talking about their work and how that can relate to the subject matter they're teaching. For example, in most intro astronomy classes, you teach about the solar system, you teach about Jupiter, you teach about Mars. But a lot of the textbooks are out of date, and a lot of the textbooks are rather dry. And if you have an instructor teaching 5 classes at 3 different campuses, they are not going to be able to keep up with any form of literature. And so we bring in NASA scientists to give presentations. For example, last month, we had a SETI Institute scientist who works on Europa Clipper, is an instrumentation specialist on Europa Clipper, to talk about that mission, to talk about how it will revolutionize our understanding of Europa as an ocean moon, as a possible location for life. And that material can then be incorporated into the instructor's classroom and enhance and inspire the students in that classroom. We broker direct partnerships between NASA scientists and instructors. The traditional way here would be scientists will go into a classroom and give a presentation, and that's great. But we want to broaden that. For example, some instructors, they may be fine teaching about Jupiter, but they are not very easy teaching about astrobiology or about dark matter. And so we get them to sit down with the scientists just to chat about those subjects that are the subject matter experts' speciality. And maybe the scientists can just look through their lesson plan. We don't write curriculum. That's up to the teacher, the professional. But we will help, suggest changes and suggest things that are modern and explain certain concepts that are very cryptic. We have a set of ready-to-go resources. We have a very much better than NASA one, even though this is NASA, but much better than NASA resource directory in terms of searchability for introductory, we call it Astro 101, introductory level space science. So if you are trying to find a resource on Europa Clipper, say, you go to the NASA site and you will get a Google hit for 3 million pages, of which maybe 1 or 2 are sort of the right place. With our resource database, you can enter keyword searches, including, I need 5 minutes for a video on Europa. What have you got? And we'll pull that up for the instructors. And the other one is community of practice. A lot of instructors are the solo teachers in a community college. There is no astronomy department. There's no space science department. They are individuals, and they have no colleagues. They have no community. And one thing that has worked really well for us, we found, and for them, is this sense of community where they can begin to interact with each other and give each other advice on how to talk. This is the reach map so far. We have about 150 colleges around the US in 33 different states. We have about 100 subject matter experts, including Svetlana, who is part of our network of SMEs. This is a clickable map. If you go to our website, I'll give the URL at the end, so you can click on which college and whether there's a college near you. If you know of a college near you and they're not on this map, drop them a line and say, this is something we recommend you get involved with. We hope to grow to reach all colleges that teach astronomy that are interested in participating. Some of these are native serving colleges. Flathead Valley Community College in Montana serves the Native American indigenous populations up there. And a lot of the colleges, say in LA, obviously have a very large Hispanic. They're Hispanic serving institutions as well. So really had the ability to interact and support is probably the good word. Communities and institutions that are really helping communities and individuals that don't get the traditional help in all the resources in science. Just a few comments, because like all programs, we are evaluated. We have an external evaluator, an organization called WestEd that some of you may be familiar with, that talks to the instructors, talks to the scientists to see if we're actually doing a good job or not. These are just a few quotes. The resources, for example, NCCN is one of the first places we go to look for things that I want to try and integrate into my class. The idea here is that this is all off the shelf. When you have instructors that have no time, they haven't got the luxury of sitting down and going through pages upon pages of resources. So we want to make it easy. Sense of community is very, very important, as I mentioned, and we have a Slack channel for that. That's very engaged at the moment. And the visiting of the classrooms, including we have several subject matter experts, our former community college students, and that's very, very important because it says you can get a job at NASA, you can do whatever you want to do, and a community college can be the first steps to getting you there. So that's just an overview of the SETI Institute, an overview of NCCN. How can you all get involved if you're interested in either of these? Obviously, NCCN is something that is something that we would love more people, more scientists to get involved with. And you can join up as a subject matter expert, as an SME. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no sort of $100 a year membership. It's absolutely free to join, and you can participate in any way you like. We do have quarterly meetings, but what's very important is that the science community at NASA and the science community more generally is all inclusive. It's not just all old white people like me. Not that I had any choice in that matter for either that, but it's very important that younger scientists from different cultures and communities, where students can recognize themselves in those scientists to say that I can do this. This is something that I would love to do, and these are career options for us. So that is our website, and I'll put the links in the last slide. But getting involved in that way will be wonderful. And obviously, if you're close to a community college and you can go to the map and see if you are, then we can put you in touch with that instructor, and I'm sure they'd love to talk to you. Another way is we have another SciAct group called Scope, which is based out of ASU, offer small grants to any SciAct team and any NASA subject matter expert to develop a resource. For example, we're working with students at UC San Diego who are putting on a career fair for students at the community colleges down in the San Diego area. And this Sea grant will pay for the hall rental, it will pay for the stipends of the scientists involved, and so on. And so that's something that if you're interested in reaching out to the community, not just through community colleges, that happens to be our one, but any other audience, libraries, museums, and so on, take a look at the NASA Scope page. And that will show you some of the ways that you can get involved as a scientist and to help the community. The SETI Institute also has postdocs. We have been very lucky in the last year to receive quite a large endowment from an individual who really was passionate about SETI and the SETI Institute. Being a non-profit organization, we do rely on donations beyond NASA grants, and we've been very lucky to get enough money to start offering fellowships and there are two active at the moment. There's one in innovation in astrobiology, and there's one in basically SETI engineering, and looking for technosignatures. You can find details of these on our website. The astrobiology one, the deadline for this year has already passed. Nevertheless, this was going to become an annual fellowship, and these are just the first two of several that we're going to be offering right across the Drake equation. And so you can keep an eye out for these opportunities moving forward. Just to wrap up, and Svetlana can pass on these links as well, and my email address, should you have any other questions. If you're interested in finding out more about the SETI Institute as a whole, just go to SETI.org, and that will have all the information you need about the fellowships. It'll give more information about the work that's going on at the Institute. We do have an affiliate program where if you're a scientist who does not have funding, you can join the SETI Institute as an affiliate and make use of our grants team to help you write grants as part of the SETI Institute. So something to think about in the future. NCCN.SETI.org is the NASA Community College Network. Take a look at our website, and especially the map. And if that's something that interests you, do join. It just needs your email address and your affiliation. And the last one there is Scope ASU EDU, the seed grant, and that's the Scope seed grant. And again, if you just Google ASU Scope seed grant, that will pull you into that page. And as I say, my email address is ssteele@seti.org, and I'd be happy to talk anything community college, anything SETI, anything astrobiology. Although astrobiology, I will probably pass you on to somebody else because that's not my area. But we have lots of astrobiologists here. Would love to talk to you. And so I will end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was great. And I was putting in those links and your email as you were talking. So I hope you all have the relevant information in the chat there. Let me ask a question. So can you give a little bit more detail on the eligibility of folks joining NCCN? Because many of the folks in the guild are on the early career student side. And I think that sometimes discourages them because they're thinking, oh, I'm not at a NASA center. Am I eligible? So can you just speak a little bit more broadly about that? Yeah,
I think on the SME side, the subject matter expert side, it's really for scientists who have connections with NASA. It's not necessarily NASA scientists. So if you are working with NASA astrobiology in any sense, we'd be very happy for you to join. And we're looking for early career students, early career scientists, especially because that's the most direct relationship that you can get with the students that we're ultimately sort of connecting with. We've just joined forces with the American Astronomical Society, which I know is slightly divorced from you guys, because that's much more astronomy, space science than astrobiology. But they are sponsoring early career scientists to go and visit community colleges to give presentations. And we do have one of our speakers is from University of Virginia, who's an exoplanet student, a graduate student, who is going to be going along to Chattanooga State Community College to give presentations on his work and talk about exoplanets. So that is an example of an opportunity that can possibly come up. So as we move forward, and although a lot of our scientists that are involved are more in the astronomy realm, planetary science, mainly planetary science, actually, and a few sort of galactic astronomers. It would be wonderful to go have a cohort of astrobiology, because astrobiology is becoming increasingly taught in introductory science classrooms, and it would be great to spearhead that in community colleges.
So any other questions from you all for Simon? No? Okay, well, in that case, I'm going to hand it over to Hillary now. She's our evaluator for the Astrobiology Science Communication Guild, and she's going to, there, thank you. She launched a poll. We are interested in getting a little bit of your feedback for our evaluation purposes to make sure that the Guild can continue to serve you. So, Hillary, let me have you say a few words on that.
Yeah, I just launched it. I see some of you jumped in already. Just 2 questions. How likely are you to participate in an opportunity that you heard about today? And Simon offered several, so that's good. And how useful was it for you to be introduced to the opportunity, even if you aren't going to pursue it right now? So that just lets us know if it's the kind of thing that works for you, because that was one of the things you told us in our wrap-up survey, in our just finishing our fiscal year this year, that you wanted to know about opportunities that you could use or you could pass on to others. So if you could just take a minute and vote. Let's see, we have 5, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. So can everybody see the poll okay? Is it a problem? Oh, there's one more. Okay. 6 out of 8, because they're not counting us.
Right.
Oh, I see a hand. Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm Margaret Race, and I'm a colleague of Simon's at SETI Institute. The part I am is astrobiology. I'm actually a biologist who studied introduced species. And so as people are working on astronomy and looking for life, the issues also touch on very mundane things like what are the laws, what are the implications of discovering ET. So I've been developing a lot of materials that link with classes that are actually civics and legal and ethical. What would it mean? And so I perhaps should, Simon, work with you to figure out how do I get these things out, because it's easy to fit them into a science class. They are definitely parts of, when we talk about bringing back samples from Mars, we run up into the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, basically. And you could think about it as all of the USDA stuff. What are you importing? And those are not minor questions, and they have ethical implications and such. And so that part, I've been doing a lot of mentoring with students to get them to think about term papers or projects and saying, I don't know which part of SETI and astrobiology you're looking at, but if you do a term paper like this that is really broadly interdisciplinary, I can guarantee that your teacher is going to be impressed. And so I've been working with students in high school and colleges and community colleges to say, just think outside the box. What do you want to be? What's your career path? Because we have people who have done so many different things. There are people up in Antarctic or Arctic environments or down in deserts. And people don't think about that when they're thinking about astrobiology. It's a career path, really.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, good to see you, Marge. Thanks for sharing that. And I see Celia had a comment too, that you joined the NCCN a few weeks ago. So happy to hear that. All right. Well, I think I'm going to close the poll here. Oh, you did stop the poll. Thank you, Hillary. Okay.
Well, and just one other thought, that if you haven't signed up Mike set up a very nice Google form for you to put your information and see everyone else's. So if you haven't done that, that would be great. That's very helpful to us. And then also if you are doing an activity, related to what Simon's opportunity was, if you could let us know. We will ask you at the end of the year, but it's much easier for you and for us if you just let us know. And we also are going to make time for sharing during these meetings for you to say, I followed up on this, or I did this that you guys haven't thought of. So because that was another thing that you asked for in your end of the year survey, was more sharing about ideas and strategies and even specific activities. That's what everybody seemed to be looking for. So you can help each other with that.
Absolutely.
We have a little bit of time now. Do you want to ask for people to share now?
Absolutely. Yes.
Any cool outreach like Celia? Did we lose? No, Celia, you're there. Why did you join NCCN? What are you doing with it?
Hi, Hillary. I just joined a couple of weeks ago. So far I haven't done anything. I filled my information on the website and I'm hoping to be able to help somewhere. I'm actually in North Carolina and I noticed you have a couple instructors here, but not any SMEs. So hopefully that will get us somewhere.
Yeah. It would be nice. Yeah. Drop me an email. Obviously, we got lots of people joined up now, which is wonderful. And we have heard from a lot of SMEs. Well, it's going back to a program. Of course, you build this and you hope they come type of thing. It's we were worried initially that all of our scientists will be overwhelmed with college instructors demanding their time. And it turned out to be absolutely not the case. What we ended up with was a lot of scientists sitting by the phone waiting for a community college instructor to contact them. And the reason is that instructors are so overwhelmed with teaching responsibilities, and so on, that they really don't have time to avail of the opportunities we are giving through this program, and obviously through many other programs that NASA has. And so, we're trying to figure out ways that we can support. So the idea is to help rather than hinder the instructors as they move forward. We don't want another thing on their plate. Come on. We want to send a scientist into your classroom, or we want to get you on the phone. It's a very much a trying to be there when they need you rather than sort of forcing anything. Consequently, we have a lot of scientists who have not had as much interaction they would have liked. But I'd certainly say for Celia, we have a couple of contacts, as you say, in North Carolina. There is a SciAct team that operates out of North Carolina, a person called Matt Cass, who Svetlana may know. It's called the Rocky Mountain something collective. Smoky Mountain, not Rocky Mountain. Get my mountain ranges mixed up. But drop me an email and I'll put you in touch with Matt, and that will be a wonderful way to link up moving forward, I think.
So, sure. Simon, I evaluated the NIFTY program, which is also SciAct funded, and it's providing after-school programs with NASA scientists and partners. And we had the same problem. We had 50 sites and we had 80 SMEs.
Yes.
So this is a wonderful problem to have. But so what we ended up doing was offering people another person if they wanted them, a second time. This was a one-visit thing in their after-school program. Yeah. But another thing we learned in an earlier project with TPT, the Twin Cities Public Television, was that it's if you have any success with any course, infusing the support and they get the evaluator to do a case study of it, or if you get the two people to talk about it, almost like StoryCorps on NPR, then you can create this repository which will bring people in. Yeah. Or let them look at it at 10:30 at night when they, when they want a distraction and they don't have to do it during their work day. Yeah. So there's a lot. I'm happy to talk to you offline about other ideas because this is a perennial problem I've seen. Yeah. No, that's all good advice. And for example, I'm trying to arrange webinars where people can actually attend is practically impossible. Well, it is impossible. And so we do make all of the webinars available on our website, and more instructors watch them afterwards than they do at the time. And that's just the way it goes. But I saw. Sorry. Are we going to talk about Sunanda's comment in the chat?
There was one above Savannah in Ottawa. Canadians are very welcome. This is a NASA-funded program, but we don't have a limitation on where subject matter experts are located. In fact, we had somebody who's based in Italy for quite a while. Now that was wonderful that she was involved and gave a couple of webinars to some of the college instructors. She's not active now, but I mean that time difference was just horrific. But yes, absolutely, you're very welcome to participate. There's no nationality or geographic boundary to that. The only limitation is on the other side that only community colleges are allowed to participate at the other side. So if somebody sort of tries to sneak in from Princeton or Cornell, we definitely kick them out. They're not welcome here.
So Sunanda, tell us about this Skype a Scientist event. Is that going to be day of?
It's going to be on March 29th, so next week. And it's the St. Louis Public Library. And there's going to be children who are 9 and younger asking questions just generally about space. And they're going to, I think, do sort of a model of an eclipse so they understand how an eclipse kind of works. And so I'm just one of the scientists there who will be speaking.
Well, that's fine.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Very cool. Yeah,
this eclipse is such a good opportunity to engage the public and students in the sky and nature. It really is wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the idea of just environmental awareness, that the environment is dynamic and it's changing all the time on so many different scales. So I really like the theme of the event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll look it up. That's awesome. I'm working with the heliophysics team at Goddard. And I get asked all the time. It's like, can somebody dial into our radio station and ask questions? And they want day of. And I'm like, a lot of those smains are going to be watching the eclipse and collecting data, but some of us science educators could help.
I was going to say that my experience with libraries and with schools, volunteering in the schools as my children were growing up. I worked with a teacher to make it fit with their curriculum. I also then linked with the library and was doing something SETI Institute type of outreach, which was, we called them science cafes. We had different topics. Of course, I leaned towards the astrobiology, but how does science fit in your life? And you don't have to be a little Einstein to be involved in astrobiology or some of these questions. And so we had the librarians setting aside, we did one was Mars month. That was March. March is Mars month. And so the librarians set up books. We had the talk, which had people coming. They were all for free, and we had coffee and stuff. And then it also linked with the schools. So with very little effort, you can reach out into the community by bringing to them stuff that they can use in their programs that already exist.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Margaret and Simon, to your points about the time involvement on the SME side. Yeah, I've been part of NCCN for probably 2 years or so. And I've been contacted roughly like once a year. I think I've only interacted with 2 instructors in my whole time. One was in the Chicago area, and I talked to her class virtually about NASA internships. That was the question she had. And the other one I spoke to about like just astrobiology curriculum development very, very briefly. So these are very minimal time commitments, I would say, and pretty rewarding. Hooray for public libraries. Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I did an astrobiology project in a library too, and they did the thematic thing, Margaret, like you were saying, and it was so popular, and they ended up extending it, and they loved the idea of having so much science, so they had like a puppeteer come in and do a whole science play, and so the integration possibilities, like I was going to say, Simon, you said, I worked on an Earth system science project, and it was designed for those who teach Earth science. But we had geographers. We actually had a couple of English professors. So particularly with SETI, and when I taught middle school, I will admit, because I'm a science fiction fan, I did a lot of integrated work where I brought in the stories, particularly all the short stories. And then we did, like they did for the Mars movie, we did a fact check. And they just loved that.
Well, yes, think about it. How did somebody like H.G. Wells in the 1890s figure out about Martians coming to Earth.
Yeah.
So you just think outside the box and go into science fiction first, and then bring that in and say, you don't have to be a lifelong astronomer like Simon is, and you still can be involved in this.
Yeah. If you haven't watched, I think it's on Apple TV, Foundation series, they did Asimov's trilogy, and they're only, isn't it amazing, Savannah? It's just so good. And now we just saw Dune 2 last week. But the Asimov series, he wrote that in the early 50s. And the cinematography is brilliant. And I read that's why nobody had done it before, because they couldn't figure out how to bring to life his vision of everything. And they did it. Boy, they stuck it.
Yeah.
So maybe, Simon, you can recruit some professors outside of science to think about how to, about writing and envisioning, as well as actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Science. I mean, that's, imagination. A lot of scientists, began, with Star Trek and I'm English. So Doctor Who was the thing that terrified me and intrigued me when I was a child. And then you progress into, he's got his TARDIS there. Great. Very nice. So, that's
time traveling
great.
Today.
Yes, it's exciting. It's imaginative, and I think that's something to encourage and nurture moving forward, because you go from Doctor Who and Star Trek to Cosmos and to Nova, and it becomes, you feel a part of it, becomes accessible.
But in the Doctor Who and some of the things in science fiction, those are great career paths.
Yeah.
You got to base it on good science if you want it to be a reasonable science fiction movie or book or whatever. And so you can talk to students about blending what you like to do.
Yeah.
Oh, so Simon, NASA, do you know about the NASA Community College Astro Scholars? It's a program at Johnson. And I evaluated it for a while. It's NCCN. And one of the things that they found, they were trying to increase the reach. And so they were having events at, regionally or in Houston. And we found that when we were trying to investigate the barriers to people not coming, because it was so impactful on kids that it was a lot of other obligations. They were mature students, so they had family obligations. They couldn't travel. So they actually added a whole component of the program to be on the campus. So you could have some events, around something they worked it out really well. So I could tell you the details, but it worked very well because they had a champion on the campus. They pulled in all the students who might be interested, did something pretty flashy, and then signed them up for a more extended course. But you could do that and then capture the faculty.
So you're right. We haven't worked with them. There's a lot of NASA programs in their own little orbits, that never intertwine. That's the story of NASA. And of course, they're working with the students and we work with the instructors, but there's that overlap, because we would like our instructors to be able to contact that, that part of NASA to work with them. And there is definitely an opportunity for overlap, but yeah, it's great. It's really good.
Okay, well, I'm going to be mindful of the fact that it's the top of the hour, so I'm going to stop this recording, and I'm going to say thank you so much, Simon, for your time.